Hey everyone. So nice to see you guys back. For those of you just joining us for the first time, we are SISociety. We are a global community that fearlessly explores taboo topics around our sensuality, intimacy, and sexuality. And this is Taboo Talks, which is a weekly conversation where we dive into taboo with leading minds in order to bring the shadow to light. And we are just waiting for both Alfina and our guest today to begin a brand new topic. Super excited. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I don't know about you, but I'm just so excited for this month's topic of orgasms.
Yeah. So that's the topic, by the way. I didn't say it yet, but this month is orgasms. And yeah, we're all juiced up for it. And we have a really incredible guest hopping on today in just a few moments. So yeah, as soon as she dives on, we can dive in to the space of explosive pleasure.
And it's so interesting because we were feeling this topic for like a while now. We were actually feeling menstruation and orgasming around the same time, and we're like, which one do we do first? And like, I wanted to jump the gun and just be like, orgasms, orgasms. Honestly, I was like, menstruation feels like we're both like, menstruation feels like it's in the collective. Like, we need, and I didn't even understand what that was going to lead us, like what road that was going to lead us down, and how deep that healing and that empowerment was going to, what was going to unfold. And I'm so grateful that we listened to our intuition and went into the menstruation first, because we really have to know our bodies and feel powerful in our bodies in order for us to like feel relaxed and able to even like be in a place where we can receive an orgasm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like this potent space of clearing and reconnecting to our bodies before we stepped into this. Like, I feel like menstruation was the perfect platform to guide us into this topic, because now we're feeling like deeply connected to our internal wisdom. We're feeling safe within ourselves, and like all those elements support your potent pleasure and orgasmic bliss. I'm just waiting for our guest to hop on in the interim. We're here for those of you that are on. If there's something that you're excited about for this month's topic of orgasms, feel free to share it in the chat. And yeah, for those just hopping on, we are still SISociety. And if conversations like this excite you, you can follow us here at sissociety.world Instagram, or listen via Spotify podcasts as we break down the walls of stigma and liberate our truth.
Yeah, and I'm just supporting our guests and getting on. But yeah, just in the meantime, I guess what's been coming up for you already, just in the short amount of time since we started this topic?
Getting rid of my vibrator, honestly. Oh, now we lost Alfina. Now it's just me. This topic is so taboo that it's cutting the Wi-Fi.
I'm here. I'm just messaging her, so my image might just go out for a second, but I can hear you.
Anyway, yeah, what's been coming up for me is like using I said getting rid of my vibrator jokingly, but like using my vibrator less and less, and just more deeply connecting to my body and my intuition, and not a machine, has definitely been coming up.
Too. For like weeks now. Well, actually for a lot longer, but for weeks now I've been like devotional to not using my vibrator, because I've been so reliant on it like my whole life, and to give me an orgasm, and realizing like how many of us are reliant on these toys, or even like men to give us an orgasm. And there's so much, yeah, there's so much like power that comes back into our fingertips when we really like connect, and so much healing that comes when we connect our fingers with our yonis and we're able to get ourselves there. And it's so like psychological, because like an orgasm is like our pleasure, right? So if we're like outsourcing our pleasure to like a toy or a man, then we're literally like declaring to the universe, like, I'm not enough to give myself pleasure. Like I need these outside sources to bring me what I want to be happy. And it's like, even though we're not saying that overtly, like that's the subconscious like messaging and programming that we're literally wiring into our bodies.
Yeah, wow. That's that's a really good point. And I hadn't really thought about it from that particular perspective, but now I am, and now I'm just feeling even more. I mean, yeah, I did a sex magic workshop with Layla Martin, and just like remembered through that ceremony, through that process, like how capable I am to like A, listen to my body, and B, give myself pleasure with like just like these beautiful tools that I like have attached to me, you know, that I like lug around every day. And yeah, it was a homecoming for sure.
And yeah, I'm just trying to help our guest because she's having a little technical difficulties. But
This is all part of the foreplay before the orgasm.
yeah, let's talk about that, honestly. So, something else I just did recently with my beloved is we created like a pleasure portal manual that basically like outlines like all the different aspects of our, like if we were like a robot, right? And you were like, how do I work this thing? Or like a stranger, like a new lover, or even just like a friend, you could show them, be like, okay, this is like mine, for instance, is split up in different categories. There's like the environment and the hygiene. So like the set and the setting, like I want to have clean breath, I want to have clean bodies, like a clean environment. Those things are important to me. And then there's things like, okay, foreplay, like what does that include? And like the kissing and the massaging and the dancing and the roses and everything that like leads up to the actual sex itself. And then there's like the energetics, like the breathing and the moaning and the eye gazing and the undulating. And then there's the actual, oh, and then there's emotional intimacy, which I feel like is one of the most important parts for me, is like feeling emotionally safe, feeling heard, feeling understood, feeling seen, feeling like you can trust the other person,
Mm-hmm.
that there's some sort of like conversation beforehand where I know that my aftercare needs are going to be met, all of that. And then there's the actual like, sexy part of it all, which has its own, which has all of its own things too. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting and liberating to like create, because it like showed myself like this is what I can give myself in my self pleasure time
Yeah.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then now I have like this tool to like this badass tool to like understand myself and share this with other people in my life. For them to understand how to turn me on in like all these ways, not just like being horny turned on, but like energetically turned on, like my heart's turned on, my mind's turned on. And so that was really fun. And if you guys are interested in that, like I highly recommend creating one.
This is a badass idea. Yeah, I'm receiving so many downloads as we open up this topic just around um like the infinite space, the spaces that we can like talk about. And one thing that was coming up was like it's not about the orgasm, right? Like that's a destination, but before that, and what I'm feeling is going to come throughout the course of this topic is like the journey to that, the emotional intimacy around it, like the science behind it. There's so many different elements and aspects to dive into around this subject, the attachment to it, like the disattachment to it. Why do women orgasm? what happens when men withhold their orgasm. Like there's just so many nuances in the space. Why does porn portray men always orgasming and like doesn't portray women orgasming? Like I have so many things I'm throwing out into the space kind of as an intention setting for the next month. And we're still waiting for our guest. So we're just gonna keep talking about orgasms
Yeah.
in the interim.
And like let's talk about the fact that like how many of us like have trouble experiencing orgasm.
Yeah.
Or like I just was watching this video that was saying like 50% of men have like faked an orgasm. And that's like men. And I'm like, how do men even fake an orgasm? Like, don't you gotta know? But like, let alone women who have faked an orgasm just to like please a partner because they don't want to like, yeah, be disappointing or feel like they let someone down or yeah, and like I would just love to talk about that because honestly, that's been something that I've struggled with for like my whole life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that too. I mean, I've never actually had a climaxed with just like vaginal penetration. Like that's never happened before um, for me. And I know like a lot of women in my life have experienced similar things. And so, and I know it's possible. Like I hear about a lot of people experiencing that. So I know it's in the realm of achievement. And yeah, I think at a certain point I really like wanted it to happen, and now I've just kind of disattached and let it go, and trust that like when that reconnection to my body happens, and I feel really safe with a partner, that will occur. Um, but yeah, I had this actually Junie was over last night, and
Junie!
I love Junie. And he was talking about like how he sees women as these creatures that just desire intimacy. Like it's not about like the sex or the penetration or the orgasm, but like what we really want, like through it all is intimacy. And I really felt into that. And I feel like there's so much truth around it. Like, like I don't think I've ever like maybe really wanted to have sex. Like, yes, I enjoy it, but really, what I enjoy in those spaces is the intimacy and the deep connection, and the witnessing of each other. And yeah, anyway, that's coming up as well too. I would say based on like the fact that our guest is having technical difficulties, we can make the decision to reschedule with her in about 3 minutes. Because she is just a wealth of knowledge, and to be completely honest, I'm a baby in this space, and there's like different types of orgasms and ejaculatory control, and I know nothing about this. Like by no means are we experts or sexperts,
Yeah,
but
but
she is.
we
So yeah,
also have our own like we also have like our own I don't know like I think we can like also share just about like our experiences with orgasms too,
that's true.
like because I feel like there's so many people out there that are probably feeling the same way that we feel about orgasms and might have like similar questions that we do, so maybe this is like the best way to actually open up this topic, this month's topic, just like being vulnerable and being honest about like all the I don't know, all the insecurities around orgasms and all like like all the desires that we have for better orgasms and
Mm,
yeah, just like keeping it really real and really honest because I feel like when people like hear the topic orgasms that I don't know, there's like all this like there just it comes with a lot of pressure and myself included, like I put so much pressure on myself to have orgasms and to please my partners. And honestly, like to be completely transparent for anyone listening, I really had this like story in my mind my whole life of like, oh my God, am I broken? Like, am I broken? Like, is there something wrong with me? Because like I'm not like receiving this like this like splendid heavenly moment with my partner and it's caused like a lot of like insecurities in my partnerships, within myself. And it really hasn't been until like actually quite recently that I was able to fully give myself an orgasm, like not all naturally without a toy. And it was a huge like breakthrough moment of like, I mean, I've been on this like devotional path, like I said, of not using a toy like consciously, and like I'm taking this like a sex ed course online about female orgasms, and it's really cool, and it shows you like all these different techniques and styles and approaches, and allows you to like practice. And so yeah, I'm just doing that, and then like also just like mixing in my own intuitive like wisdom of like what was feeling good. I was just like exploring that, and yeah, and then it happened. And it happened, and I wasn't like expecting it to happen, but then it happened, and it was like a huge breakthrough moment for me where I was like, oh my God, like I'm not broken. And like this is available for me. And even though mentally, like I'm like, okay, I know that I can orgasm because I've been doing that for a long time with toys. Like I know that that's possible. It was so empowering and so healing and so like inspiring to like give that to yourself.
Wow, babe. Yeah, when you first told me that this happened, I like did a little dance because the the pathway is long and intense, like in remembering the beauty and spaciousness in our bodies. And yeah, it does feel like there's so much pressure around this topic. And I'm like feeling it too. I'm feeling like a little sticky and like uncomfortable and like I believe if that's in me, that's in the collective around this subject. And um, just the concept of like attachment keeps coming through, like having a partner that it doesn't feel enough if they don't give you an orgasm, or having a woman that really desires a man to orgasm and doesn't feel like she's enough if she can't bring him to orgasm. Really just recognizing how much story is rooted in the backbone of this topic, and how we're here having this conversation to really begin to bring light to it and like let go of the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and just come back to like the beauty of like what is in a space of disattachment. Like that's really my intention this month. But yeah, I mean, like I've like had partners, like I've like run the gamut of like connecting with really like different men in beautiful ways, and met men who like refused to like do anything with me until I had an orgasm. It was like
Oh
that
my
was like their objective. We could not
gosh.
start we could not start doing anything until like you orgasm, which was like beautiful,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But then I would like connect with another man and feel this attachment of like, wait, like he doesn't care about my orgasm? Like he doesn't want to, it's like, then you have this story that was built on this old narrative. And then I've had partners that like never asked me if I've orgasmed, or like never like, I wouldn't want to say that they didn't care because that's a story as well too. It just like never came up in conversation. Like they didn't express any interest in knowing. And like that also had its own slew of like insecurities that came up. Like, do they actually care about like my pleasure? Like, do they desire to pleasure me? Is it like just self-serving them and their needs? And yeah.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's also just the way that we've been like trained as society, and it feels like yeah, the man's pleasure has been like prioritized, and we even talked about this with menstruation too, like just even the way that like the schedule that we work on every week is like based off of like a man's cycle, and it's not really taking into accordance that a woman needs like certain amount of time to rest during the month and to be more introverted, and so like it's also connected. And just to kind of go back to like the thing that you're saying about emotional intimacy being like a top priority for women, I really, really relate to that. And I feel like a lot of the times, like us as women might actually just be using sex for emotional intimacy more than for pleasure, even. But I also feel like that's connected to the fact that we have kind of like we've kind of like cut off um our capacity, or like what's the word, we haven't really advocated necessarily enough for our pleasure in the bedroom. I think in general, this is in general statements, like not every woman is like this, not every man is like this. And some of us, I know I felt this way, I kind of like gave up. I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm probably just never gonna really receive the pleasure that I want in the bedroom anyway, so I might as well just like be the most like pleasurable bikini to my partner and have him receive his full experience, because what's the point of even trying for me, you know? Like that was my mindset, honestly, until like recently. And now I'm with like a really beautiful partner, and we're really exploring the depths of like tantric lovemaking and all the realms of pleasure that are possible. But yeah, I know for a long time, like if I was feeling distant from my partner, like emotionally distant or even like physically distant, I would like use the sex in a way to like feel closer to them and to feel validated and to feel more worthy in our connection.
That's big.
Yeah, it's so deep. It's so
So
deep.
vulnerable and so beautiful. Yeah, I can really relate though. Like I think for me, and like what's coming up in my subconscious right now in your share is that like I did the same for so long. Like just completely putting my pleasure and my desires on the back burner and just thinking that I wasn't like really capable of experiencing like this like deep bliss. So then I like kind of attached the physical intimacy to just connection, you know, and like feeling connected and loved by someone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like this message is coming through that like our needs and desires matter and they're worth communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Like we cannot get exactly what we want if we don't communicate it. You know, like give yourself the opportunity, sis, you know, give yourself the opportunity for a partner or a lover to meet you. The worst they can say is no. I don't want to do that. But the best thing they can do is they can say yes. So like yeah, like really having like bringing conversation to the bedroom is feeling really important right now, and saying like that feels really good, but can you try it like this, or like, oh, you know what I
Uh-huh.
like want to like dive into today, like a little bit of this back scratching, you know, or like, oh, like I don't really like that, like let's not do that again, you know, just like this consistent communication as you write and weave this story together.
Yeah.
Love
And
making.
we're kind of like lab mates, just like practicing and experimenting and trying things on each other. And
Yeah.
it's not just like women, like men also. I just want to equally say this is like a conversation both ways. Like there's a lot of like unfulfilled men in sex and sexual situations and relationships, I would say equally. And just because like the man is able to orgasm or maybe reach climax doesn't necessarily mean that he's having a fulfilling sexual experience, and it doesn't mean that he's actually receiving like the full amount of orgastic potential and pleasure that he can receive. And there's this book like The Multi-Orgasmic Man, and that's like the classic referral. But yeah, for men, like you guys are able to have multiple orgasms too. It's not just women. And so like let's just talk
Mm,
about that too, because it's not just like a one and done. And I feel like for so many years, especially at cooking up, it was just like, okay, well, we're on the man's time. Like as soon as he's done, then I guess sex is over. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I'm just warming up, you know, like I'm just warming up. And that's another thing. Like let's just talk about foreplay, because how much of receiving like an orgiastic and orgasm experience actually like starts way before the actual penetration, right? Like, what do
mm,
you need? Like, what kind of foreplay really turns you on and gets you like juicy enough to even want to be entered?
yeah. You know what I'm seeing? I'm such an analogy hoe. Like I'm seeing like the process of cooking. And you know, like I just want to like bring everyone back listening to this to like a moment where you've like had a bite of something, a dish that just was like explosively amazing, like multi-layered, textured, orgasmic, cosmic bliss. And then let's rewind a bit. Like imagine everything up until like that brought that bite into your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that process, right? Like from that fruit ripening perfectly on the tree and then it being picked and like you know gently put into the crate in the truck and like brought to the restaurant, to like the person like dicing it, you know, like slowly and like gently and like beautifully on the counter to like turning on the pan, you know, and like waiting for it to get just hot enough and then like pouring the oil in just the right amount. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
all of those things from like the point of conception until it enters your mouth feels like the same process of foreplay. And it's like this beautiful story of just like, yeah, from beginning to end, like what takes you there, like really connecting to the story in it.
Oh, I love that. It's a whole journey. Like I love to be like turned on all day. Like if I'm with my lover, like I want to be like dancing with him and like we're massaging each other and we're like teasing each other and we're like, you know, like making like energetic noises and giggling and having these experiences, deep eye gazes and moments of just like stillness and dropping in with each other. And that's like just like building and building and building and building, right? And then maybe like right beforehand, then it's like there's making out and maybe there's kind of like humping and it's just like, and maybe there's like words of affirmation and like roses, like this is like my dream, you know, and all these things, and there's candles lit and then still, you know, even if you're like in like doing like having like a sexual exchange, like I love to be like teased, like I want to be like so juiced up that like oh you think it's gonna happen, and he's like, you know, maybe starting to put it in and then pulls out, or like kind of teases around the outside before actually entering in. Like for me, what I'm realizing is like, and I think this is for a lot of women, we really like have to, like our vaginas like need to be fully like ready to be penetrated, or else it can actually be traumatic to have a penis like stuck inside when it's not fully lubricated, open, ready, and feeling safe. And how many experiences have we had, like especially like when we're like drunk and hooking up with people, they would just like jam it in and you're like dry and you're like, I'm not ready at all. Like that's actually traumatic to the womb. So like of course so many of us are carrying traumas. It's not just from our ancestors, it's from all these other experiences too. And so like I think it's really important that we advocate, and if we're not ready, like we say, I'm not ready yet. Like and not be afraid to potentially like that could like cause something, right, of like the man like being impatient or not understanding or us feeling like shameful or any of that. But I think it's really important, we have to advocate and protect our pussies, because if we're not doing it, who else is going to do it? And I really believe that if it's entering from a place of trauma and not being prepared, then like it's just setting us up for not a satisfying sexual experience from that point on. Even if we kind of do get like wet and stuff, I really believe that like our flowers need to be like unfurled one petal at a time. And maybe sometimes we are in such passion and heat that all the petals just go like right away. It doesn't always have to be a long process, but it feels really important that we are open and we do feel relaxed and we do feel ready to be entered.
A beautiful blossoming flower. Yeah, I love that what you said, advocating for our pussy is beautiful. And I mean, honestly, on the flip side too, we're like bringing in the masculine, and like also like I just really am advocating for people like speaking up for what they want and what they need, right? And like I think there's an assumption around the masculine that like they always want sex, they're always ready to like hook up, they're always ready to go, but like not always the case. Like men have feelings, and like their heart's connected to their lingam, like it's like all part of the process. And like sometimes maybe they like are being pursued by a woman and they don't want to connect, and it's like I feel like it's so important to step outside of the narrative of what we think we should do and really begin to check in with our bodies and share what we do want, like allowing every moment in our lives to be a full body yes or no. And like just because the man is inside of you, you know, you doesn't mean you like if it's not feeling right, then make like tell him to stop. You know, it's like we don't owe anybody anything in these spaces. We owe ourselves everything. That's really like coming through strong.
Coming through. Well, yeah. And like orgasm isn't, I think like one of the biggest mindset shifts that has helped me is like orgasm is not the main goal. When I'm like going into a sexual experience, like even with my self pleasure, sometimes I have this like agenda of like okay, like I need an orgasm, like that's what I want. But when we place like that goal on this pedestal, then it creates pressure, and there's a lot of like disorder, like erectile dysfunction disorder, which I would love to get more into with a specialist this month. And also just women, us having our own anxieties. And it creates a lot of that when we feel a pressure, especially if we're with a masculine who maybe comes really quickly. Then we feel like, oh, I better hurry up my orgasm, you know, or like to be on his time. And for me, that was like a big blockage because I'll be in my mind about it. And so I think like if you can just start to like have more compassion for just the journey and the process of pleasure and all the other types of pleasurable orgiastic experiences that we can share with a lover, that doesn't necessarily just need to be that final like firework crack off moment, right? We can experience like a heart orgasm with each other. I can be experiencing just like a full body energetic wave like take over me type of orgastic experience, and experience a lot of pleasure and not put that pressure on myself. And ironically enough, when you take that pressure off of each other and off of yourself, that's what really opens up the most fertile soil for the orgasm to just sprout through. It's like when you're least expecting it sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, an orgasm feels like a seed, like that you're planting, and then you have to like nourish it and water it, and yeah, it's this like whole beautiful process. And I'm loving all like we're just using all these great analogies, and I'm really loving them.
We are the orgasm consultants, like
We are.
yeah, we are. And this is only week 1, babe.
Gosh, we're really popping off here. I knew before the call, I was like feeling some constriction that we were just gonna go there this month. Like I was like, no holding back. Like we're going straight into it.
Yeah, I hope that everything I'm sharing is going to be approved on Instagram. But needless to say, this is why we have other sources that we stream
Daddy
through.
Instagram, please approve me.
Yeah, like let's just talk about the men for a second. I mean, I'm not a man, obviously, but just talking to men in my life and my beloved recently has been giving me a lot more understanding too for like the masculine side of it, because like I said, a man can be turned on, can be like fully erect, and a man can even come. But sometimes if a man comes like right away, that's actually like a sign of like a really unfulfilling orgasm. And we as women can also be manipulators of the masculine turn on. Like how many times have we just like turned on a man, like maybe just grabbed him down there and started like turning him on, and he like maybe his heart wasn't even open and ready for that. Maybe his body was like falling asleep. Maybe he was just like angry, and like you're using this as like a tool to like bring connection again, right? Like I've done this before, and I'm sure other women have done this before too. Like that is gross manipulative control of someone else's pleasure and like genital like physiological experience. And I'm just realizing this now talking about it. And so I think it's also like important for women to take accountability for consensual approach for the man. Just like we don't want to be like penetrated when we're dry and we're not ready, I think it's really important to gain that same consent with a man before we just start trying to turn him on. And I think that's like an important conversation to have too with our lovers.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm like the RBDSMA came up again, which is always amazing. And then yeah, just asking, like for me, like obviously, like I think it's a challenging subject. We've talked a little bit about it, but like the concept of consent, right? Like there's obviously clear communicative yes, like please kiss me right now. You don't no, please don't touch me there right now. But there's all of these nuances in the space, right? Where like it's very clear you both are attracted to each other. It's very clear you're both turned on. It's very like clear that maybe there's a desire for things to like continue to build. And then there's like that like the fear that like if you speak into it, I'm like speaking on behalf of like the collective right now. There's this fear that if you say something, you're going to ruin the moment. You know, like, hey, like I just want to slow down and like, check in with you and like see how you're doing, like, as like this tension's building. So yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of that, Alfina, and how you navigate those spaces.
So what's your question exactly? Can you repeat it?
Um, like when you're feeling like really turned on by someone, do you always have a clear conversation around it before you engage in physical activity?
I
Or do
mean,
you prefer that like a masculine asks before he penetrates you every time?
so that's so like there's not really a black and a white because it's like so variant depending on like who it is and like our history and like is it a partner, is it someone I just met, right? Because like there's lots of different stories and contexts. But I think a lot of times what's important for me is to have a conversation, like a BDSMA conversation, boundaries, desires, needs, aftercare, meaning, all of that beforehand, so we know where our boundaries stand. So if I've already said, okay, you can penetrate me, then there's already that underlying assumption. But it's good to gain permission in that actual moment. And I think a lot of how we can gain permission is also like with the body language and reading our body languages and reading our emotional cues. And like, am I leaning in and am I opening up? Am I making eye contact with you? Is my body relaxed? Am I breathing? Like checking in with all these little nuances tells you a lot about where someone's at. Because sometimes women and men won't say anything. It's like fight, flight, and freeze. Like those are like the trauma responses. And sometimes I'll like freeze. I'll like find myself just freezing and I'll kind of be like zoning out and my whole body will kind of just be like in this like comatose almost. So if you're noticing any of these traumatic responses, like a partner's kind of closing down, they're maybe like they're kind of closing off, you're not hearing them breathing, you're not seeing them anymore, then like I would say in all these situations it's really good to have a verbal check-in, like, is this okay? Are you feeling up for this right now? And then also there's other times where like you're really in this like passionate enthrall with your partner and you're there with each other and you're breathing together and you're moving together. And so in those situations, like, yeah, I mean, I don't think you always need to like verbally ask. Sometimes I'm saying, please like put it inside of me. And this conversation. I love this month already. It's so unhinged. So I think it's just different for everyone. But something that I've noticed that I really love to receive. So this last year, I named my yoni. I gave her a name. And it really shifted my whole relationship with her. And we have a dialogue now. And so I love when a partner actually refers to my yoni by her name and then asks permission. And this could even be like in the very beginning of our sexual interaction, but just like even just like a chant or or like, oh, you're so beautiful, or like, how are you feeling, or may I enter you, like, I know like kind of sounds corny, but it honestly, like, it really helps my yoni to feel appreciated, seen, respected, loved, and safe.
Yeah, you introduced me to this sex magic ritual, and I too named my yoni. And my first partner in the space that like he communicated with her, and I was like, at first when you shared this with me, I was like, this is like super cheesy. I'm not going to get into it. Like, this is silly. But anyway, I went along with it and we did it, and I like had this really beautiful release during the ritual. And then there was a moment where he was like addressing her like genuinely as if she were like her own entity, which she is, and like really honoring her and like speaking into how beautiful she was. And I was just crying and I was like, oh my God, this is so potent. Like super, super potent. Yeah, because I think like interestingly enough, in the sex space, I think sometimes we can separate ourselves from our sexual organs and also just disassociate from our body. And there was something so deeply healing and forgiving and reconnecting to like name my yoni.
And for men, naming your lingam
Yes,
too goes both
exactly.
ways. You can both address each other in the bedroom in this really like sacred and intentional way of acknowledging each other's sacred portals. And it actually, like, even when I do this with myself pleasuring as well. I ask her permission before I just start going in. And I feel like it has shifted my ability to feel more pleasure and like open up. And she really likes that. Like, it's really respectful for her and it turns her on. And I think a lot of us would feel the same way. Honestly, it's like going into a stranger's house. Like, do you knock on the door and ask permission? Or do you just like bust on through and like start taking food out of the refrigerator, you know? Start eating all the food out of the refrigerator.
The worst house guest ever. Get out of.
And I know that it's a part of us, but still, it's like our sacred creatrix life canal portal to another dimension. It feels important to at least acknowledge. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. But everyone has their own flow, and I don't do this like every single time. It's just something that I've noticed that really does shift the energy for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that book is amazing. I'm so grateful you introduced me to it. Can we share with those who are listening the name of the book so they can connect to that ritual if they feel called?
Yeah, it's called The Art of Sexual Magic. And she has 2 books too, Margot Nanda. I can put it in the comments below. But her books are incredible, and it takes you through all sorts of rituals, like self-pleasure rituals, and then also rituals to practice with lovers and partners that are really transformative with friends. Like Heather and I have done a couple of the rituals together as well.
Yeah, we have. It's allowed me to feel a lot more connected and safe with my body. And I feel like that's the pathway to having really like potent orgasms on multiple scales, is like, at least in my experience for the feminine, it's like a feeling of safety. And like feeling like you can soften and really like let go.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Safety is everything. If I don't feel safe with someone, I'm not going to be able to orgasm with them. Like, that's just where I am. That's my truth. And also what I'm realizing is like my nervous system is a huge part of it. So like, it's not just safe in like, okay, I feel safe with them, I trust them. It's like, do I feel safe in my own body? And that's like the actual foundation of safety, outside of just safe with a partner. And like the nervous system is basically this like house of feeling safe. Because if we're in fight or flight, if we're in stress and anxiety and fear, then we don't inherently feel safe. And so how are we going to receive an orgasm in our own bodies if our own bodies don't even feel safe? And something that allowed me, a really big part of what allowed me the other day to get myself there to that point, to self-pleasure and orgasm organically without a toy, which was, anyone hopping on now, it was like a huge milestone for me. I was like laughing and crying simultaneously. I realized I had an hour and a half deep tissue massage before. So my body was so like tenderized, and just like my whole mind was turned off, and it allowed my nervous system to be at this baseline point of safety that allowed my body to release. And how many of the times are we just like going throughout our days, busy working, doing all these things, and then like our last priority is our pleasure. And then when we get to the bedroom, we're like not in that place at all. And then we're mad at our bodies for not getting there. It's like, what? Of course it's not there. Like, you literally just drank a coffee and was on 6 hours of work, and then you're running out with your friends, and now you're here, and you're like, it doesn't work like that. I mean, maybe for some of us it does. I'm not going to say for everyone, but I think a large majority of us really need to have that peaceful nervous system attunement to feel safe in our own bodies, first and foremost, then feel safe with a partner, of course, It's like that's the recipe. And then the orgasm can feel safe as well. It's the same with our menstruation when we're anxious and when we're overburdened or when we're out of alignment, out of attunement, our hormones are out of balance. Our periods usually don't come, or they come irregularly, or we have really bad cramps, right? It's like this kind of the same thing with an orgasm in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And I'm just thinking now, I'm reflecting back on all the different like types of orgasms I've had. Like they're all very different and unique. Like every one has its own like length and texture and feel. And I'm like so curious to like have some masculines on here to like dive into this, like just like the physical elements of the different colors of orgasms. And also to talk, I'm really excited to talk more about the different types of orgasms because like I've been hearing a lot about a cervical orgasm.
Me too.
Um, and I also heard that you can literally have an orgasm anywhere in your body with like
Literally. Sorry.
consistent, literally, no, totally. Everything is
Yeah.
crucible. Everything is crucible. Uh, But if you just like, if you consistently stroke a certain place on your body and give it your focused attention in the present moment, you apparently can like build tension and then ultimately have some sort of release anywhere in your body. This is like a rumor that I heard. I haven't toyed around with it. I mean, I've like had kind of like heartgasms where I'm like, wow, I'm like feeling a lot of like pleasure and kind of like a tickling sensation in my chest, and then it like builds.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I've had like really deep, like profound orgasms through like anal stimulation
Mm-hmm.
and like, nipple stimulation and like different things. Um, but I know like scientifically speaking, like there are like multiple layers and different types. And I'm so excited to talk more about that and
Yeah, me
and
too.
just learn more about it. Like initiate me. Let's go.
I love having mouthgasms, like eating a really good food. Like food turns me on. I'm like moaning half the time when I'm eating. I'm just like, mmm. Like there also is science that shows you when you make noises, pleasurable noises with your food, it does make it taste
Yeah.
better. So yeah, there's
Actually,
like
it's
all
so
sorts of
wild.
orgasms. It's infinite.
Wait, this is wild. You brought this up because I was receiving the message to share this earlier, but I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll plug it in or not. But I went to a tantric class here in Tulum, and this woman was talking about how sound carries things through the body, specifically like pleasure. And so when you're like connecting with a partner and they're touching you, if you consistently bring a sound like a ah or an ooh, and every time you breathe out, you make that sound, the pleasure circulates and you're
Mm-hmm.
capable of having a full body orgasm. And you can
Mm-hmm.
actually, and I like tried this with a past partner of mine, and it was like really powerful because like you actually like you kind of like focus on the pleasurable feeling you're feeling like in your lingam or your yoni, and you use the sound to pull it out of that space and circulate it and move it through your whole body, like, and then allow that tension to organically build through the sound. So like it's, of course you make sounds when you eat, like
Uh-huh.
it's enhancing the space of pleasure there too.
Yeah, I love that you brought that in. Sounding is such a critical part of receiving a lot of pleasure and orgasms. Sounding and breathing,
Oh,
to me, like are like two fundamentals that honestly I wasn't really practicing in my previous sexual partnerships. Like there'd be some sounds, but the breathing is another one. Thank you for sharing all of that because it's so valid and it's so powerful and it's primal. It's primal. Like we're meant to be making sounds. And when everything's quiet in the bedroom, I think that that's kind of like a red flag. That something's not quite right. Like I want to be able to be loud.
check yourself,
But
honey. Check
breathing,
yourself.
the breath is so important. And I recently went to in when I was in Portugal or when I was in Spain, I went to this tantric class like all day, and they're teaching us different styles of breathing. And one of the most powerful tools I learned was just this like circulation of breath. So every morning, this is just a simple practice that you can do. It's just like starting with your root chakra and literally just inhaling like a deep inhale, and you feel the inhale through your root, come up into your sacral, come up into your solar plexus. You feel it in your heart. Do it, like keep breathing a few times if you have to, until you can actually feel it in your heart. Bring it up as many chakras as you can. This takes practice, but eventually you're going to be able to bring it to your throat. You're going to be able to bring it to your third eye, and then you bring it to your crown. And then when you feel it at your crown, you can hold it as long as you can, and then you just send it slowly, the out breath slowly, and let it trickle back down through every chakra. Try to feel it. If you want, even like imagine a color for each chakra as it's passing, the breath is passing through. And that practice alone, I just do it for like 7 minutes when I first wake up, has been super transformative in the bedroom. I try to practice like a breath similar to that, or else another tip is making sure that you're keeping the chi and the flow in. So you always want to keep your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And that sometimes it's hard when you're making noises to always do this, but if you can imagine that the breath is like a circle, and it's kind of like circling, looping, so when it reaches your crown, it's coming back down, and you're not losing it, but you're just circling it. That tongue to your roof of your mouth, it's an ancient Taoist practice. There's a bee like, hi bee, I love you.
Oh,
The
this is
bees
so
are like,
cool.
the bees are like, yeah, talk about Taoism.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees.
Orgasms. And then you just keep your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and you can circle that breath. And then you just consciously circling it. So usually when I'm doing this in the bedroom, I'm feeling, it's not necessarily, I'm not always feeling it down to my root, but I am feeling it going down to my genitals. And that's where you are feeling like, whoa, my God, I could release, I could orgasm. It feels really good. But in order to like keep sustaining that pleasure and build up the orgasm so it will feel even better, and this is especially important for men, then you bring it back up. And you bring it to the heart. Maybe you bring it to the crown, and then imagine it like a circle, and then it's down, and then it's up, and then it's down, and then it's up, and then it's down. And what I've noticed doing that was what helped me orgasm on my own, was just doing the breathing. Because I was like I was like teasing myself, and I was like leaving it here as long as I could take it. And then I would bring it up to my crown, and it honestly felt so good up here. Like it almost felt better up here.
Wow.
And then I would like send it down. And yeah, and so practicing that with the sounding, I think are like two super fundamental ingredients for having a really impactful, pleasurable orgasm. And just like, or even just like pleasurable experience, even without attaching to the orgasm.
Yeah. I mean, we're built of pleasure. It's like in every facet of our life, we tap into it. You know, like the ground beneath you as you feel it and connect to it can feel pleasurable. And in any present moment, like the wind, like feeling the wind, like move your hair and like gently, like, you know, caress your earlobe. Like if you really begin to connect to these moments, there's pleasure everywhere. And like, yeah, it's interesting. I'm like, yeah, so much is opening up around this. I also thought it was so crazy, Alfina, that you had a bee around you, which is a pollinator, and like definitely like a spirit animal of like sensuality, sexuality. And then I have a mosquito here that's been biting me this whole time, and mosquitoes are also pollinators. So we've been like surrounded by
Wow.
pollination energy.
That was so amazing that this bee just came up and was like on the camera screen for like 15 full seconds. Just like this bee guide. Wow. I love that. Animals. Yeah, I love that you're talking about like eco-sensuality is what I call it, just being turned on by nature. As a forest elf, that's one of my favorite ways to experience pleasure. Like I love just dancing with the trees, like humping the trees, just being caressed by the wind and the water. Oh, the water, you can just melt into her. It's amazing. Yeah. So it's like, it's not just us giving ourselves pleasure, our partner giving us pleasure. It's like, how can we experience pleasure everywhere around us? Like nature is the ultimate icon of pleasure and sex. Like we all
Yeah.
come from nature, and everything in nature is like so sensual inherently.
Naturally. Or
Naturally.
orgasmically, organically. This is
Oh.
oh
Well, this has been honestly, it flew by,
yeah,
and
good.
and
Is our guest
only the
still
beginning.
coming on? Where is she?
Yeah.
Where's our guest?
Yeah.
We were just meant to have this conversation today to really lay the foundation down and get really vulnerable around this subject. Felt
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels important because we all like talk about orgasms like it's, you know, this thing that we all want and that we all, I think, have this like confidence about, but underlying it, there is a lot of shame, there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of fear and distortion, and it's really important to just be vulnerable and honest about it so that we can really meet each other in that place of truth and support each other in our pleasure from that place.
Yeah.
And we have 3 minutes left, so we'll have more of these talks. We have this talk every Wednesday. But do you want to close us down, Heather? For
Yeah.
those
Yeah. I
listening?
definitely want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's Taboo Talk as we dive in and continue to dive into the multi-layered space of this month's topic, orgasms. It's already getting really juicy. It will get juicier. We're going to explore this topic from all angles, and you can catch the replay under our highlights at SISociety World Instagram. And like Elfina said, join us every week, same time, same place, for a new transformative episode of Taboo Talks. You can also find us on Spotify, podcast, and YouTube under our bio links. And if you're desiring deeper conversations around these subjects, you can send us a private message to join our WhatsApp community. We are SISociety.
Society.
Yeah. We're a global community dedicated to rewriting the narratives of taboo around sensuality, intimacy, and sexuality. And yeah, follow us to continue these conversations as we flip the script and shatter social norms. We will see you next week for another episode as we pioneer the new earth
Together.
together, hand in hand.
Aww. I love you, Heather. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It's been an honor.
Wow, it takes two to tango, sis. It was lovely. It was so nice to have you here. And for us just to surrender to the fact that we are the ones we've been looking for, and we were the perfect guests for this redirect.
Truly
Yeah.
grateful for
I love
you. I love
you.
you. And I love everyone watching.
I love all
See you next
of you. Okay, bye. Bye.